Well, I would guess and I would imagine that that should be working right there. It's like, hey, it's fantastic to clean your apartment. It's welcome to fall cleaning. It is what it is. Yeah. I'll find something to use as a cleaning right. Oh, my water's running. Should I open to the fat belly on that guy? So put on your hat there, Baldy. You didn't do exactly a good job with your haircut. So welcome to the fall cleanup, eh? I'm gonna move my studio over there. Them old underwear that he's washed out, the crosses rotted on them, you just right. Maybe that was a bit too much information. Oh yeah, in your belly. So you're on camera, dude. You're probably gonna upload this to YouTube, but act like an idiot on TV. Like that shirt. Well, than that, it's a name with Max and me. Max over there. Max even Max had a drink last night. Max don't really drink. Believe me. We don't drink. We're just pulling it like Max, yeah, you pull. Alpha and me. Alpha. What is that? What does that mean? Well, lights are on. The lights are on. You're not home. You're mine. I'm gonna put something on in the background here. Something educational. Clean my apartment. Really, really good. That's what I'm gonna do today. I'll come up in the algorithms. Does this girl really like you? It's good to have that information. I fucking love Jordan Peterson. He's Canadian. I think he come from.
One of the things the existentialist would say is,
I think Jordan come from the streets, but anyway, I don't know. But
what's the relationship between mental health and responsibility? And that's a good question, because it also has to do with something like the definition of mental health and responsibility. It's like, if you want your life to be well constituted, let's say, whatever that means, and it doesn't mean being happy. See, the reason it can't mean being happy is there's going to be times in your life where you're going to be called on to act when you're not happy. So, for example, when one of your parents dies, you're going to make a choice. You're not going to be happy. That will not be, well, hopefully you won't be. Otherwise you're tangled in some sort of Freudian nightmare. But let's assume that that's not the case. You're not going to be happy about it. You're going to be hurt, and maybe even partly broken. So what the hell are you supposed to do then? Well, the answer is, you should be more use than trouble under such circumstances. That's a good thing to strive for, you know, because your mother's going to be, if it's your father, your mother's going to be equally distraught, and so are your siblings, and everyone else you care for. Maybe by that time you should be tough enough so that in that situation, you're good for something. Someone has to make the damn funeral arrangements. Someone has to settle out the will. Someone has to make sure the family doesn't degenerate into horrific squabbling, which is something that often happens after the death of a parent. And you're not going to be motivated to do that by happiness. And what if you have a sick child when you're a parent? Maybe it's a chronic illness. You are not going to be happy about that. You know, it'll be a weight that you carry with you all the time. And it's one of those things that seems particularly unjust. It's like, okay, well, you're no longer happy. Well, if being happy is the purpose of life, well, then you're basically, that's pretty much it for you, isn't it? And, you know, these catastrophes that I'm speaking of, you can be certain that you're going to be exposed to many of those during your life. You know, it'll be a rare period. I think it's a rare period in anyone's life where one or more of such things isn't going on chronically. If it's not you with some terrible health problem or some other terrible problem, then it's a parent or a sibling or a child or Because, you're connected to other people and they're vulnerable too. So that's the lot of human beings. And so if it's happiness, and this is what Solzhenitsyn said about happiness, he said, happiness is a philosophy who's brought to ruin by the first blow of a guard's truncheon. It's like, yeah, that's about as bluntly as you can put it. Dostoevsky's critique basically said, you can't solve the problem of suffering by formalizing a utopia and then joining it like a mass animal. You can't do that because you're not that kind of creature. Even if it was possible, you wouldn't accept it. You'd cause trouble because you're interested in trouble. You're probably more interested in trouble than you are in being happy. Kierkegaard says something similar, but in a more what would you say? In a manner that's more constructive in some sense with regards to what you should do with all that insane energy that you're not going to be able to encapsulate inside a utopia. And it has to do with individual responsibility. I think at least part of it is the complexity of our society. It isn't certain how the future is going to lay itself out, and it isn't certain that what you knew in the past is going to be sufficient for you to move forward into the future. So there's lots of opportunity, but it's very complex. And it's not easy to keep up in our world. Like if you look around the world, you might think, well, the happiest people are those where the standard of living is the highest. That's actually not the case.
Right.
And you think, okay, but why wouldn't that be the case? It's like, what do you want? Malaria and death at 40? Obviously not. But then you think, okay, what's the price you pay for a high standard of living? Well, that's easy. You virtually always sacrifice the present for the future. You're always working. I mean, you guys, you're fairly influential and you've got this good thing going, but it could crash at a moment's notice. You better keep your eye on it. And every day you're thinking, okay, this has to be done, and this has to be done, and this has to be done. And it pays off. I mean, you have a nice studio and I would presume a reasonably comfortable life, but it's not like you're not running on a treadmill to keep that going. And so that's security and it's health, but it isn't necessarily happiness, and it's certainly not necessarily freedom from anxiety. And I would say most people in the modern world, weirdly enough, have far too much to do. 2 career families and a couple of kids. It's like, man, you're done. That's 60 hours a week of flat out work.
Yeah.
So, and that can be too much. And then I also think, because our society is philosophically unstable, and that's sort of reflected in this polarization, is that people are doubtful about whether their lives have any meaning, for example. Why bother? What's the use of it? Who cares? It's like, what difference is it going to make in a million years, And life is hard, and if you just have a nihilistic viewpoint, then it's easy to be swamped by doubts and existential angst and all of that. And I think that's a mistake, because I think that your life can be very meaningful. It's proportionate to the responsibility that you take on, and you can learn that by watching when you're engaged in the world, and what works to sort of protect you from feelings of isolation and doom. And a lot of the lectures I have on YouTube are about exactly that. Positive emotion is associated with movement forward. Like if you're where you want to be and things are going well, then your behavior should be activated so that you go and get things. Now, one of the negative consequences of that is that if you're really in a good mood, really happy, you're going to be impulsive and make mistakes. Because you hear these dough-headed, that's a very minor word, people who are always pushing happiness as the key measure for successful existence. It's so ill-informed that it's embarrassing that even happens. Positive emotion makes people impulsive. Maniacs, for example, which is really, that's mania, right? Bipolar disorder. If you're manic, you're one happy person. Way too happy. Everything is great. Nothing but wonderful things that are beyond your imagination are going to happen to you, and they're going to happen fast. And so you're down to the mall to buy everything you can possibly get your hands on because you have 100 uses for everything. And then a week later, you crash into your depressive episode and you realize that you're $150,000 in debt and you've alienated everyone that you know. It's like, that's untrammeled positive emotion. So how about no? A pure index of positive emotion is no way of determining whether or not a system is working properly, even your own system. You need a balance between positive and negative emotions. Plus, positive emotions are absolutely exhausting, because if you're in a manic episode, it's like, it's time to get everything good right now. Fine, but you won't sleep for a week, and then you die, because you just burned yourself to a crisp.
It's Fiverr, here to turn that idea into something real. Find a freelancer today.
There's just one thing you need to make 2022 your best year of guitar yet. It's not more guitar.
What could you do to improve yourself? Well, let's step one step backwards. The first question might be, why should you even bother improving yourself? And I think the answer to that is something like, so you don't suffer any more stupidly than you have to. And maybe so others don't have to either. It's something like that. You know, like there's a real injunction at the bottom of it. It's not some casual self-help doctrine. It's that if you don't organize yourself properly, you'll pay for it, and in a big way, and so will the people around you. Now, and you could say, well, I don't care about that, but that's actually not true. You actually do care about that, because if you're in pain, you will care about it.
When there is no enemy within, the enemy outside can do you no harm. When you refuse to allow any doubts in your own mind, then no doubts from others will ever cloud your judgment. When you create a strong mind, there can be no other that will defeat you with their words or with their judgments. When you believe in you, you need no other to believe in you. Because others really have no say in who you will become. Only you have that say. Only you can decide if others' opinions become reality or you create your own fate.
Self-respect, self-worth, self-love. All starts with self. Stop looking outside of yourself for your value. Stop looking outside of yourself for your value. I'm telling you to love yourself. Self-love, self-care, self-respect, self-worth, self. Stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking about you. What are you thinking about you? Stop worrying about what everybody else is thinking about. What do you want to do?
Where's my coffee cup?
And start looking within. Look, come on. If you want your world to be better, you want the world around you to be better, look, you got to look in the mirror and you got to love you. Say positive stuff to you. Be with you. Why are you scared to be alone? Be with you. Love you. Enjoy you. Because if you can't love and enjoy yourself, if you can't take care of yourself, nobody's going to take care of you. Remember, small steps, great distances. Now you know. Let's go.
You must have, as a basic principle, the determination to achieve excellence in your various fields of endeavor. When you discover what you're going to be in life, set out to do it, and to do it well. Set out to do it as if God Almighty called you at this particular moment in history to do it.
See, the whole universe operates by law. Everything moves according to law. It's not an accident that it gets dark at night. If you went out of this hotel in the middle of the night and it was broad daylight, you wouldn't only be shocked, you'd be scared. But normally, you see, we're going by law.
Yeah.
Well, all our results are in tune with law. And we have the ability, Carnegie put that very well. Any idea that's held in the mind, that's emphasized, that's either feared or revered, will begin to clothe itself in the most convenient and appropriate form available.
Wow.
We've got to study. We've got to study nature. We've got to study what's going on. it was interesting listening to Walter, who is an absolute genius. And he says he has found that artificial intelligence, to understand it, what you're really doing is studying yourself.
You need a broad scale vision. You have to know what it is that you're doing with your life, let's say generally speaking, but more particularly in the next 3 to 5 years. What do you want? What do you want from your friends, your family, your intimate relationships, your employment, your education, your care of your mental and physical health, your response to temptations like drug and alcohol use? If you could have what you wanted, if you could lay your life out properly, how would you be functioning across those 7 dimensions? Why would that work for you? Why would it work for your family? And why would it work for the broader community? Then that gives you a reason. And if you have a reason that's well thought through, that you find compelling, so that's a compelling story, let's say, the kind of compelling story a leader might tell, then that will provide you with motivation to do the things that are difficult that you need to do.
That's Max's new
So
spot.
that's positive emotion, that motivation. It's a neurochemical system that runs on the chemical dopamine. And it's the neurochemical system that underlies people's willingness to undertake something
Max
voluntarily.
wants me to get a puppy dog.
So we experience most positive emotion in relationship to a goal. And what that means is if you don't have a goal, then you don't have any motivation. And so what that means is you better have your goal
Camera's on.
well
Something wrong with
delineated,
the camera.
because that way you'll be maximally motivated.
Something better.
Now the
have
additional
more
advantage
handsome
to
than
that
that.
is that if you have your goals delineated, and they're compelling goals for you, it also makes you less anxious and uncertain and stressed, because your pathway forward into the future is mapped, and that makes it more certain, and uncertainty causes stress and physiological load. Okay, so you want to have your large-scale vision, you want to have it thought out on a 3 to 5 year basis, you want to have it cover those 7 or so dimensions that we already described. You want to see why it's relevant to you and your family and the broader community. You want to break that down into your monthly, weekly, and daily practices, and if they can be routinized, then so much the better. And then that becomes built into you. So what happens neurologically is that when you do something new, you use almost your whole brain. That's a good way of thinking about it, particularly the right side of it, the right hemisphere. And as you practice something, the amount of your brain you use gets smaller and smaller and moves leftward until you basically build a effective little machine at the back that takes care of it automatically. Routinizing things decreases the cognitive and physiological load. It's a big deal. And if you routinize good habits, then they become part of your character and part of what people come to expect of you.
I think the thing that people misunderstand about success is they're looking for the easiest way to get there. And it's funny, how many books have you read or I wouldn't say promoted, but had on your show? Everybody goes 5 easy steps, 10 steps to greatness.
Gonna be all right.
10 steps to this. And those steps for success, they're infinite. They are infinite. You cannot count them. It doesn't matter how long you've been doing it. Those steps are constantly shifting. You don't know if they're there. Sometimes you have to trust that the next step is going to be there when you can't even see it. And sometimes when you step on that step, you go right into quicksand. And you got to be able to
I'm going to move my studio
pull
from over in
yourself
this
back out
corner.
of it again. So everybody's looking for these
They're there.
steps, and there are no steps. Those steps never end. And you just can't climb steps.
You know what I wish I had?
Sometimes
I wish
you
I
gotta
had
crawl
I
down
can
those
afford
steps, and
acoustic
you finally
paneling
get to the top,
because
and everything shifts.
this
At the
should
bottom.
have acoustic paneling. Here,
Where's
here.
our meeting? Sometimes we're the top.
And that's going to be my little.
Well, you may get to the top, and
I'm
you're
going to
like,
get
I'm
different sound by
here,
jamming over there.
and then you look back down.
Of course, I'm going to get a different sound jamming over there, but I need acoustic paneling. That acoustic paneling, you know what that stuff is worth?
And where you
That
fall
stuff
is
is,
the top. It's not even
is
the
worth
top.
$40
It's
a
the
panel.
beginning.
For a
It's
panel
really
that's
the
big.
beginning
It absorbs the
of
sound, right?
where you're supposed to be.
And
And that's when
you got to have that
twist.
stuff, eh? Make the
I just
studio
like,
sound
it
better.
just drives me crazy.
Make the song sound better.
Hit it.
Oh,
Look at.
I think I'm doing pretty
I
good.
always people that I do.
Some people out there think that all of a sudden you put out a song and then you're super famous. Those songs are gone already. Those guys started somewhere. Those guys all started where I'm starting.
Since starting this, it's been over 8 years, but
Home
during
studio,
before
putting
then,
stuff out there.
it was, decades.
I'm working at it
to
every
build
day.
myself.
That's my intention. Work at it every day.
Right, exactly. So you obsess.
Right,
Exactly. So all the steps that you climb just to get started. Yeah. Just to get started. And people don't want to talk about those steps. They don't want to talk about those steps and how difficult those steps are, and how many steps that you stumbled on, how many steps you didn't see, and how many steps that people placed in front of you and they pulled them pulled away. People that you were very close to, people that you knew, that people that you thought that were like, hey, these people actually have my back, except they did have your back, but they were actually pushing you down the steps.
The song was initially,
It's funny when you talk about those things, people talk about it, they seem surprised. But you should know that in that path, all those things are going to be there.
4, 5, 6, 8, 9, 10. Just a day in life of a wannabe rock star. Looking good for me already. I was some weight. I quit smoking 6 months ago. Almost 4 or 5 days away. 6 months. It's been, or since 6 months since I've seen her pretty face. Anyway, there's a lot of things with him, so problems, but there's, this shit happens. Anyway, it's not that I don't know what to say to her. Not that I don't know what to say to you if you're watching this. I don't know how to get the opportunity to say it. Where'd I find you? I'm not chasing you around.
Hey, I don't think I need to introduce myself, but if you don't know me,
We'll sit in your car in my driveway or something.
I started
I'll eventually come outside.
Something you might have heard of. I started SpaceX, and we've had some of the most successful space launches in history of mankind. I also managed to recover and reuse them. I also own the Boring Company, OpenAI, Neuralink, and Solar City. And of course, Tesla. None of that excites me as much as what I'm about to present to you. OpenAI is what led me to this. We've been working hard for over the last 2 years, and we've done for the first time what no one else has done.
Washing machine's going.
We've developed a piece of quantum computing software.
I don't know if this was...
It's the first in the world. I personally spent $3 billion.
What's going on? Bro, here's a compilation.
Negative thinking is a major problem. If you're trying to be successful or happy, you have no room for negativity.
None. No rules for negativity. We'll not be having this negativity.
Now, what you cannot do is bury yourself by using your success compared to other people. See, success is not how far you got, because somebody always further than you. Success ain't how far you got. Success is how far you got from where you started.
Oh, yeah.
God said, man, is as he thinks.
This is the third set, isn't it?
We are how we think. You have got to change the way you think. It is the whole determining factor of where you go in life. We are all where we are today because we thought ourselves to this position. If you don't like the position,
laughing at me, I don't think I can make it, Hey, you know,
people know better.
You do anything you want in life.
Do better. I can't even say that's always true in my own life.
It'll be done for you. That's what the
No,
cornerstone.
I should get up every morning early and exercise about 5:30 and jog.
I don't
about
get too
3
preachy
miles.
on your ass back.
No better. I know what is healthy, what is not healthy. I have been informed. I know how to bench press.
I'm in the middle of lunch here. Having lunch at the same time.
I know what I ought to be doing. It is not the absence of knowledge, but the gulf between what we know and what we do is often a wide gulf, and we don't always reach across.
we're all participating in this thing called life. All of us. Life has ebb and flows. It's got thunderstorms in it, earthquakes. This life, stop expecting it to go smooth, because it ain't finna go smooth. The road to success is always under construction. You combat negativity and you combat discouragement with gratitude.
what messes you up is you focus on the thing that's not happening. So whenever you get discouraged, change your focus from what's not happening to what has happened. Because what causes the downslide is if you get wrapped up into what ain't happening, it get ugly, man. But you have to focus on gratitude. People understand how serious gratitude is. It's hard to be miserable and grateful at the same time.
Yeah. Vegetables, all vegetables.
Our business taking
Codfish.
off. We meet the person of our dreams. But here's the key. The blessing doesn't come by itself. But with that blessing is going to come opposition, jealousy, people that are not for you. The question is not so much, can you handle the blessing? The question is, can you handle the persecution? Everyone is not going to celebrate your success.
You're right.
All your friends won't be happy when you get that promotion, when you move into that new house, when you get engaged. The favor on your life will stir up the jealousy, the competition, the envy in certain people. You can't have the blessing without some kind of persecution. If you can handle the persecution,
Not everybody wants you to
then
succeed.
God can trust you with the blessing. You have to pass the test of overlooking insults, ignoring what people are saying. They wouldn't be talking if you weren't making a difference. Let God deal with the naysayers. Let God take care of those that are trying to make you look bad. Some people can't handle your success. They were fine as long as you were at their level, as long as you were single like them, as long as you lived in their neighborhood. You have to be okay with them not being okay with you. Your time is too valuable to worry about what people think about you. You don't need everyone to celebrate you. You don't need all your co-workers, all your relatives to cheer you on. If you become too dependent on people, then if they don't meet your expectations, if they don't approve you, you'll spend your time trying to get their approval. Don't look to people, look to God.
I do not deserve the good measure that flows with success. I just don't deserve it. I just can't see myself as being in this position. I don't deserve it. This often comes from things that people said to you or about you. They programmed you to see yourself in a limited parameter, and so when you see opportunities beyond how you've been programmed, you reject it because you don't feel like you're deserving of it. I do not want to stand apart or be different. I want to fit in. Because they have a belief system that holds on to being ordinary, they will not take the lead. I am afraid that I will become a target, and you will. If you take the lead, you will become a target.
Better slow down and shoot that shit, eh?
But just because they're shooting at you doesn't mean they shot you.
There are a lot of voices in life trying to define us, tell us who we are. Sometimes they're uplifting, other times they're negative. You're not attractive. There's nothing special about you. Our own thoughts will try to label us. When you listen to all these voices, it's easy to think, who's telling the truth? Who am I? Am I strong and confident, or am I weak and insecure? Here's the key. The only voice that matters is your voice. What you choose is what you will become. Who do you say you are? God says you have seeds of greatness. You are destined to leave your mark. Other voices will tell you, you're just ordinary. You have the final choice. The problem with some people is they've chosen the wrong voice so long, they don't know who they really are. They've allowed circumstances to define them. Mistakes, disappointments, now they've lost their passion. The only one that knows who you really are is your Creator.
What are the things that you fear that's been keeping you from living your dream? That's been keeping you from doing some things that you would like to do? Life is about growth. You can either go back to your comfort zone, and there you won't find any growth, or you must be willing to go forward and face your fears, because you're never going to have a fearful existence. And some fear is acceptable. There's some things that you really should be afraid of. Now,
only one cop there.
To immobilize you, you
There's only one cop there? They don't come for me with one cop car, it's usually 4 or 5.
There's a difference between having a fear and the
fear having you, being stopped by fear. It's perfectly fine to have some fears. You embrace those fears and then you move on. You act on whatever it is that you fear. What you resist will persist.
You can't say I'm weak and tap into the power. You can't say I'm not that talented and tap into your greatness. Who do you say you are? Not who do other people say you are? Who do your coworkers say you are? No disrespect, but you are not who people say you are. You are who God says you are. If you let them put their limitations on you, convince you that you can't accomplish your dream, then because you're letting them define you, what they're saying is going to come to pass. Don't repeat the negative people have spoken over you. Imagine someone asks you, who do you say you are so we can tell others? This pandemic has me worried. My back's been hurting. These kids are getting on my nerves. I'm really discouraged. That is not who you are. Go back to the scripture and say what God says about you. I'm strong, talented, favored, blessed, forgiven, fearfully and wonderfully made. I am not what I feel. I may feel weak, but God says I'm strong, so my report is I am strong. You may not feel up to par. You're dealing with an illness, fighting that depression. It's easy to wear the labels.
Thanks, Joel. That was Joel, ladies and gentlemen. What am I out here? From the Showing Off the Belly series, this is Maximus and me.